All right, let's jump straight into this explainer. Today, we're decoding a truly brilliant narrative from Crypticode 455.2. And look, this isn't just your standard sci-fi story, it's practically a coded transmission. We're going to follow a grounded group of 20-somethings who use what you can really only call spiritual technology to take back their personal sovereignty from this massive, energy-draining hive mind. And what I absolutely love about this world is the aesthetic. It's totally serene. You've got these mature characters in clean, contemporary fashion, operating against these vibrant, detailed backgrounds. No flashing dystopian lights, no glitch art, just pure, grounded clarity as they navigate a wildly complex system.
So here's our roadmap for today. We're going to track their journey chronologically, starting with the hive mind glitch, then we'll look at weaponizing love against hate, move on to the deep freeze confrontation, dispersing the shadow swarm, and finally, firing up the summit tower firewall.
Okay, part 1. The hive mind glitch, recognizing the system's hunger.
So the story kicks off in this incredibly sterile, controlled high school assembly. But here's the catch. It's actually operating as a massive human CPU. This hive mind is basically a synchronized network of people stuck on a continuous loop of insecurity. It literally feeds on everyday noise. There's this character Nivel who acts as the focal point, right? He's just siphoning up all these huge spikes of joy and fear from the crowd. Because that's the thing, the system absolutely demands a reaction. It needs extreme hype or deep, deep fear just to keep itself alive. These people aren't there to celebrate anything. They're an emotional battery getting completely drained.
But instead of just blindly reacting like everyone else, our four main characters are sitting there, stone still. They're acting as admins of their own reality. You've got Rev, the revolver, holding down truth and protection. Diesel, the dissolver, neutralizing the lies. Abby, the absolver, bringing that core strength and compassion. And Evan, the evolver, keeping the vision crystal clear. They use these specific roles to quietly just click. They flip their internal radios right off the hive's frequency. They don't boo, they don't cheer, they just disconnect. And that simple act completely fractures the mob's.
Moving on to Section 2. Weaponizing love against hate, the magnetic core.
So the group retreats to room 302, which has this beautifully grounded atmosphere. And Lord Pink introduces a total game-changer of a strategy, weaponized love. Now hold up, this is not about Hallmark cards or just being nice. No way. This is a tactical structural necessity. Think about it. When you're attacked, hitting back with a sword just accelerates the whole conflict, right? And hiding behind a shield? That just delays it. But weaponized love acts like a giant magnet. It actually absorbs the poison, breaks it all down, and returns it as pure water. You have to fight for the enemy's soul, because if you don't love your enemy enough to defeat their demons, those demons are just going to respawn even stronger.
And this creates such a fascinating contrast. At first, Diesel totally writes off love as some biological trap. But Lord Pink hits the nail on the head. He points out that Diesel has only ever experienced counterfeit love. Hunger, possessiveness, dependency, a trap. Real love, on the other hand, it's pure physics, it's gravity. It's the ultimate force strong enough to counter all the chaotic fragmentation of the outside world and keep a soul in one piece.
I mean, let's just sit with this quote for a second. Love is not just an emotion, it is a force, physics, the cohesion that keeps galaxies from flying apart. That is incredibly profound. And we see exactly how they apply this threefold flame of will, truth, and love right away, when Abby gets viciously cyberbullied. Neville takes a private, vulnerable note of hers, mocks it, and broadcasts the whole thing to the entire network.
Now, Abby's reaction here is an absolute masterclass in using this spiritual tech. They literally rewrite the code. The old script, that would have her apologizing, shrinking away, or maybe Diesel hacking the bully's account in a fit of rage. But wait, that's exactly the data packet of shame and anger the system is fishing for. Instead, they run a completely new script and form a circuit. Diesel uses his gravity to lock the cruelty in place, while Abby sends back pure, unadulterated compassion. She acknowledges her own messy truth with just a simple heart emoji on the bully's post. By totally refusing to play the victim, she hard resets the troll, completely starving him of the reaction he was so desperate for.
Which brings us to Section 3, the deep freeze confrontation, facing middle management.
So, because they refuse to be victims, things escalate. They get dragged into Principal Pent's office, which is this frigid room full of screens. They literally call it the deep freeze. And Pent is the ultimate sterile system interface. Abby actually notices that when she looks at his energy, there is nobody home. He's entirely empty of humanity. He tries to force them back into compliance with these totally empty threats, resetting their awareness to sleep mode, dismantling them via suspension, marking their permanent files, closing doors to their futures. To him, they're just defective units creating unauthorized energy spikes.
But Diesel sees right through it, and he drops this incredible realization. He says, "We're not defective. We're not hardware. We're admins, and we're revoking your access." Man, what an empowering metaphor. It's all about setting boundaries against systemic pressure. They are reclaiming administrative rights over their own nervous systems. They aren't throwing punches at the principal. They are literally just denying him access to their internal software.
All right, Section 4, Dispersing the Shadow Swarm. The Parking Lot Field Test.
So they get suspended and thrown out into the baking heat of the parking lot. Suddenly, they're surrounded. This swarm of synced individuals circles Diesel's car, demanding a reaction. Neville starts scratching the paint, trying his hardest to spark some rage. But Diesel completely short-circuits the whole thing. He literally tosses his car keys right to Neville. He tells him, "Go ahead, burn it, smash it." By proving his sovereignty isn't tied to metal and atoms, Diesel totally escapes the material trap. And you can see it just visibly confuses the synchronized mob.
So really, how do you neutralize a synchronized mob that is practically starving for your rage? Well, you speak directly to the exhausted humans buried underneath it. Abby steps forward with this incredibly gentle pity. She looks at these 20-somethings who are just drowning beneath the system's script, and she simply tells them they can stop. No yelling, no fighting, just her serene, grounded truth, and it completely shatters the mass hypnosis. The crowd just disperses, totally confused and disoriented.
And that leads us to our final section, Part 5, the Summit Tower Firewall, broadcasting the new signal. The group transitions out to the vibrant, wide-open atmosphere of Summit Hill. They need to override the system's infected, purple-hued code before it can isolate their town. And they do this by turning abstract spiritual tech into highly coordinated, concrete steps. First, Abby forms the perimeter as the immovable core. Then, Rev drops the blue shield, consciously closing all those energetic ports. Diesel physically patches his hardware right into the old tower. And finally, together, they channel their unified signal to broadcast a clear, luminous frequency straight into the encroaching shadows.
This part is absolutely incredible. Channeling their will, truth, and love, they broadcast this code. I am a being of violet fire. I am the purity God desires. They blast this massive column of amethyst light right through the dark ceiling above them. It shatters the false dome, washing over the town, lifting the invisible heaviness, and totally ending the frequency war. They don't just clear the noise for themselves, right? They literally become the beacon, the firewall for everyone else.
As we wrap up this explainer, I really want to leave you with this to ponder in your own life. Are you running the system script, just constantly reacting to every push and pull of the hive mind? Or are you broadcasting your own signal? When the noise of the world gets absolutely deafening and the pressure is on, think back to this story. Ask yourself, who holds the administrative rights to your mind? Thanks so much for going on this fascinating conceptual journey with me today. Stay grounded, stay clear, and keep broadcasting your true signal.